Morning, everybody. While the panelists sit down, I just wanted to give a quick thank you and shout out to Ellie, Andres, Rachel, Vanessa, Jimmy, the entire Family Office Club team for just producing another great event. Righty-sighty, there we go. I've seen a couple of yawns. I know you guys have been in here. It's a little stuffy. Can we just stretch a little bit, literally? I mean, just put your arms up. I'm not going to ask you to stand. That's probably a bridge too far, but just sort of give yourself a little bit of a stretch. So good morning. We'll do our best to keep it interesting over these next 30, 35 minutes. My name is Lawrence Latimer, and I have the pleasure of moderating this panel on technology, artificial intelligence, and blockchain investment strategies. It's a lot. And so we're going to talk a bit about trends, what's coming next, and also the expertise and depth of the panelists that we have here. Now, for background, I'm a founder of an angel investment organization called Princeton Alumni Angels. We've made over 50 investments since our first one in 2018, and we do it all across the spectrum. And we see about 1,000 startups over the course of a year that fill the top of our funnel. I'm also a serial founder and been the CEO of a number of venture-backed companies in financial technology, blockchain, and AI. So I know a little bit of something about the topics that we're going to talk about today. And we have an awesome set of panelists here: CJ Filoni, Rahul Mehta, Jorge Cortez, Francis Santora, and Jared Graham. Now, to use the time efficiently, each is going to give a little bit about their background as they answer the first sets of questions. So we're not going to do sort of the general, tell us who you are first. And just to ground, if you give me a little bit of grace for another 90 seconds to go, just to ground in some of the facts, investing in technology, AI, blockchain has been through the roof, particularly on AI, and the headlines are sort of dominated by everything AI these days. In 2024, over $100 billion was invested globally, and it was about an 80% increase from 2023, which was already close to a record high. And in the last year, by some measures, 50% of all venture capital dollars has gone into AI. So it's been a pretty frothy market. In blockchain, it's been a little bit slower, but a lot more focused. So things dried up in 23. They started to tick back up a little bit in 24. And 25 is actually really starting to see the numbers tick up, although still coming off pretty low lows from the sugar highs of 2021. And that intersection of the two remains pretty interesting. So we've got a lot to talk about here. And I think, really excited about these panelists. So, we're going to get started, go through a couple of areas. I really just wanted to start with a little bit of almost like a lesson for you guys. Give us a little bit about yourselves and tell us one area that you're focused on, whether it's tech, AI, or blockchain, that you think is a few steps ahead of the curve, that you think you've got a bit of an edge. So we're going to ask you to share some of your edge here today with those here in the audience. So we'll start right down here.
I have 35 minutes, right?
There you go. You got the rest of it.
CJ Filoni managed a $1.5 billion multifamily office of 35 years, what I could call scenario on the Wednesday. And then decided to leave some footprints in the sand, a little bit of legacy, and transitioned. We transitioned most of the office to a nonprofit for financial education for younger generations. And the way we're doing it is through agentic AI. So my takeaway, and I guess my role here, is to talk about a massive impact that agentic AI will have on every single member in this room, whether you like it or not, unfortunately, but it will. As a side note, digital assets, they get another battle.
This is what we are going to ask everybody to answer this one, and we'll probably start peppering you individually.
My name is Jared Graham. I'm the founder of Castella Development. I have over $600 million worth of ground-up multifamily experience on the real estate side, more so than the VC tech side. So kind of where I'm contributing here is the usability aspect. So one of the projects that I had worked on, we actually recapitalized it with a tokenized offering. And so we spent a lot of time working with securities attorneys, figuring out exactly how can we position it, and then actually pitching it and recapitalizing and helping our institutional partners get out of the deal. And then one of the things that I think really looking at is kind of the agentic use cases. I think that is probably the biggest area of opportunity, and they trying to figure out where is it actually usable and over a longer period of time. I think that's one of the things that we need to figure out because it is rapidly evolving.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Cortez. This is my third year attending, so I want to appreciate the team at Family Office Club extraordinary execution of these awesome conferences. I'm co-founder of Beat Basel. It's a spin-off out of the blockchain center that we used to run for a few years in downtown Miami, developing the ecosystem there for almost 20 years, startups, co-working spaces. And ultimately, I'm also a lecturer and educator and creator and advisor for the University of Florida's Blockchain Lab with a $5 million grant to expand the education in 12 different other cities. And more recently, ultimately, I'm an innovator in residence and origination partner for LDA Capital as a multi-billion-dollar alternative investment fund, more traditional, getting into digital assets through hyper-connected founders like myself. And we're looking for projects and we're looking to support founders on later stages in Web3 with projects that have a token on a top-tier exchange. In order to support that for offers of at least 10, 20, or $50 million of liquidity into their token. These are not meme coins. These are real projects that I'm happy to talk about here, and supply chains and commercial groups that have a lot to say and a lot to tokenize. So real world assets is an edge to the question, and I'd love to talk more about that.
Great. For Hope?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Richard and his team for yet another amazing event. This is my second year this time, came here last time in May. I'm an angel investor, started in 2017, focusing fully on blockchain, digital asset space. And then in the last 2 years, all my angel investing is going towards AI. One of the area which you asked about is what I'm focusing on is not just private companies, but public companies, which are under the radar and trying to implement AI. And I'm probably sure we're going to talk about it more. There's one thing I wanted to make sure I just want to take a 30 brief second to talk about it. Last time when I came in this panel, I took up the entire 5 minutes to just talk about Bitcoin. I made a pitch around Bitcoin. And I said, this is something you should put, if you can, try and have a 0.25 to 0.5% portfolio exposure. Just wanted to give a quick update. Things have moved quite far in the last 1 year. Obviously, you have a Bitcoin precedent. You have a Bitcoin conference going on in Vegas where the VP Vance is talking about it. US is saying they're going to make a strategic reserve. There's now a crypto czar. So things have moved a lot. And one of the best way to judge how far we have come in last 1 year was last time this panel was on day 3 post-lunch. Half the people were already figuring out how to get to airport. Right now we are on first panel on day 1. So quite a lot of progress in last 1 year.
Where do we go?
Hi, I'm Francis. I'm an angel investor, pre-seed and seed. An area I'm really excited about is how AI intersects with biology. And I'll give you an example. There was a little baby born named KJ recently in Philadelphia. He had a rare genetic mutation called CPS1 that affects your liver function. It has a 50% fatality rate. The researchers read his genome and realized he had just one letter in his entire genome that was wrong. So they changed it to the right one using a technology called CRISPR. And thus far, he's doing great. We are getting to the point where we can read your genome like it's computer code, think the same way ChatGPT does, edit using technologies like CRISPR and Stitcher, just like you're editing computer code or editing a Word document. I mean, this is technology that could have everybody in this room living to 150 healthily. That's exciting to me.
Great. Well, that was a great breadth of experience that we have here, and appreciate you giving us some of the ideas. Actually, CJ Francis, or who I want to CJ and Francis, I want to direct this towards you guys. What was your last investment that you made, ideally in AI, or I mean, pretty much all investments these days touch AI in some way, shape, or form? And what drove you to make that call?
First, I just want to ask a question. How many do you have to use AI agents? Not ChatGPT, but AI agents. I just get a context of the row. What? Okay. More than the last conference I spoke at. So the best investment I made was not an individual one. It was spreading it around in a company called, there was a startup called C10. C10 is the MIT Artificial Intelligence Lab, led by one of the most renowned professors and architects of AI in this country. And they are partnering with startups to be equity as well as money and also strategic capital. It is doing phenomenally well. Luckily, we were the only family office, luckily for us, we were the only family office invited because I've been talking to them and working with their projects for now 5 years. And I really think that, one, agentic AI may seem like it's a commodity. It won't be. It'll become niche the same way there are social media platforms for every different strike, right? It's going to become niche. What dating apps for every different strike. Two, you don't want to pick horses. I mean, I'm going to give you a suggestion as someone with 75 investments on behalf of the family office, ETF or some version thereof. Find a C10 that they made 50 last year. So there will be carcasses. There will be a bloodbath, but there will also be beyond moonshots, beyond your wildest dreams.
But what about C10, that particular one? Because you, by your own admission, there's a lot of companies out there that do something related or similar. What about C10?
They're an incubator that's part of MIT, and they only work with institutional. So I hesitate to talk about it, but they deserve so much credit. They have an interesting model that's very pro-founder. They are strategic. They are real incubators. Not everyone throws that word around. And unfortunately, either it's 100 million is
okay. Got it.
So while I don't want to say it's accessible, there will be accessible C10s. There are so many universities who are trying to replicate what they do, and they are going to make it accessible. I don't know if they're going to go cloud funding, I don't know, Regulation A, but it will be accessible, and those are the ones to look for.
So excited you had to stand up about it.
Yeah, I'm really passionate.
Clearly.
Also,
Francis, what about you?
I'm just going to stay here, but my latest investment is a company called Scent, based right here in New York. It's basically cuts the cost of sending text messages by 80 to 90%. The way it does that is you get text messages from companies all the time, like two-factor authentication, marketing, blah, blah, blah. If they're sent via SMS, it's way more expensive than sending them via iMessage or via WhatsApp. Scent figures out what platforms the customer has and says, oh, this person uses an iPhone. Let's send it via iMessage at a 90%-ish lower cost. This can save hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars a month for a lot of software companies where SMS charges are quite expensive. And especially overseas, they're often a lot more than what they are here. So this company, I think Twilio's current market cap is 16 billion or so. This company is going to take it to zero. This company is going to replace Twilio. Really excited about it.
Thank you. And so now I've got one for Rahul, Jorge, and Jared. You know, there's, whether it's in real estate or, you know, maybe drilling down a little bit in blockchain, had a couple of tough years, but still getting a fair amount of attention. A lot of institutional adoption. We've seen tremendous adoption of stablecoin side. Trading volumes are up, more exchange traded products, as CJ was mentioning. And so the institutionalization of crypto is certainly here and is accelerating with the changeover in the executive. What are 2 or 3 areas that you think aren't getting enough attention that are on your radar that you think are maybe undervalued?
Yeah, so just in terms of the cycles that you're talking about, I heard a Microsoft futurist actually talk about this, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, where everything comes in a big hype cycle, right? And so you get a big hype cycle like Bitcoin. Everybody heard about it initially, and then everybody really gets busy and they go to work and they do the work, and then it comes back and it's useful, right? So I think that there's a lot of things like that happen. So my company's tokenization program, we had heard about it. I got involved in it because I was very close with the attorneys. I also have a law degree. And so I was close with the attorneys talking about the technology and ended up just, they brought it to us first because of that relationship. And we had to structure a whole program around that. And so I think that that's one of the big things that is going to happen with the blockchain technology. People are figuring out what all the different use cases are because people understand at this point kind of what tokenization is. People have heard all these terms, but people are really starting to do the work and figure out how can it be useful and building the regulatory framework around it. Because we have the existing regulations, but they don't necessarily fit exactly, or people have to figure out how do they make it fit and get the rulings that it takes. And so I think for me, it's really about regulation and record keeping. And that's one of the big things that blockchain does.
But the excess, Please. About that, did you find and are you finding that the issue of tokenization for widespread adoption behind the initial life cycle is a marketplace challenge? It's a marketing challenge. There's not enough eyeballs in the myriad of exchanges where you can trade digital tokens with smart ERC20s or ERC4s, 4s embedded. I mean, you need like NASDAQ. NASDAQ has a lot of people coming. You're a stock exchange. You don't have eyeballs.
Yeah, that was one of the big things that we looked at was we looked at other groups that had tried it, and it's, at that time was near cost prohibitive, right? And so we ended up really looking at it from that perspective was how much volume is actually needed and how much is wanted, right? And so one of the big things that I think about with tokenization and that we found out through pitching institutional groups and retail investors was that the tokenization promise of liquidity is actually not necessarily what people want, right? Everybody in here, or the allocators at least, are looking at where they're going to put their money. And they don't necessarily want immediate liquidity from that. They want to look at what's coming over the long term. But you have to figure out what's the valuation, like who are you going to trade it with? The volume thing is a big deal, but I think that there are different investment structures that don't necessarily need tokenization. That's fair, or at least not for liquidity.
I'd like to add 3 eyeballs on healthcare and biotech for decentralized science research. Efficiencies on that, it's growing very fast for everything from, finding disease, cure to many disease, and evolve the research aspect internationally and globally. I think there's a lot there's use cases, plenty of use cases, and the groups for decentralized sciences are getting together right now. So that's something that you can get early right now. Real estate portfolios is huge for tokenizing real world assets, efficiencies, better management strategies for those kind of portfolios in real estate. And last but not least, international commerce, supply chains, efficiencies on all that. There's plenty of use cases, but again, technology is cyclical. The use cases are already scaling, but now is when you can get early into the next wave and next cycle and get the best as far as an investor entering early. And nobody's looking at that with that importance because everybody's into AI right now, right? So everybody's into AI, right? Oh, by the way, sorry. Blockchain is the underlying technology. This is why we had a wave before AI. Blockchain is the technology that will protect us from wild AI. So if you want these AI agents and you want to develop your AI strategy, you better use and learn blockchain first, because this is going to protect not only your personal data, your personal information, but your companies and organizations. So make sure that you are protected first and then start exploring with AI.
And it's a set in your image. Actors or actresses are already putting cells on the blockchain because they know they will be replicated in 2 seconds or years.
So just to continue from...
We're going to come back to that one in particular. I think that intersection between blockchain and AI is really sort of underexplored areas. We're going to come back to that in a minute.
So just in a little of contrarian view, because I've come from an investor standpoint, I'm not a builder in this space. Got into crypto space, blockchain, 2017, invested in a low-loss startup, early stage startup, did that all the way till 2021, 22. I've completely stopped that. I've now moved into AI. Here's a simple reason. He asked a question about how many of you have used agentic AI. A lot of hands went up. If I ask right now how many people have invested in Bitcoin, a lot of hands will go up. But what other application are you using, which is the underlying tech is blockchain? The adoption has been slow. The space, the industry has spent a lot of time on meme coins and this and that, versus AI. Look at how fast it went from 0 to 100 million users in a matter of like a month or so. So yes, blockchain is a great tech. I understand that there are few companies focusing on it, using it in the right way, but there's so much happening here in this space. It's very difficult to figure out where to put your money wisely in blockchain. And same time with AI, but then at least you have, those companies are going for some real world impact.
100%. I talking about blockchain, which I adore in terms of security. I traveled years ago. I traveled to Republic of Georgia. They had so much corruption you couldn't trade real estate because you had to bribe 15 different people. And finally, was just said, forget. no transactional nothing. They use the chain. They put all of their titles and title insurance, just they really don't have as inside their title insurance, on chain, disintermediated all of the local officials who were asking for handouts, and all of a sudden, they got to get. I sat with there, I said, you know what? The title insurance industry is going to disappear. We're going to do all this. I came back, did a ton of work for our family office. We put some money in. We realized that vision runs up against the regulatory bureaucracy. And when it does, you lose.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
that's right. Like I think that
okay.
why BlackRock coming in with like this whole Ondo real world asset. Blockchain was started off with like a bottom-up approach. Bitcoin, it went from retail to institutions to now government. Where it is going with the rest of the crypto is we need somebody like BlackRock or bigger institutions to come in. Circle is doing an IPO next week. And it's now becoming more like a top-down, and those guys have more power to figure out the whole bureaucracy, and then they are trying to figure it out.
Yeah, or there's a layer between. Like there are companies right now that are using AI to figure out what are the regulations and how to go plug in all of these different places, as opposed to having to go against the bureaucracy. How do you build a layer around it?
You know, I think it's going to be has to be a top-down approach. It's not going to be bottom-up, and it's also not going to be state. It has to be federalist.
Thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So the supportive regulatory environment is certainly helpful as you think about scaling and massive adoption. I want to come back to that intersection to AI and blockchain, and maybe ask one more question before we start to wrap it up. And hopefully we'll have time for at least one or two questions from the audience. We talked a lot about data. Jorge, you really talked about data privacy and sort of leveraging blockchain as a medium for principally data protection and the decentralization of data. Can you maybe dig in a little bit on that? And, Jared, sounds like even in your tokenization project, that might have been a part of it. And, as we talk about even title, it's kind of a classic use case for blockchain is digitizing title to property. But can you, Jorge, maybe drill down a little bit in there? I'd love to get any reflections on the kinds of not just commercial opportunities, but investment opportunities. Where are there, spaces that you would say this creates some tailwinds, that intersection between AI and blockchain?
Definitely. Coming back to blockchain and AI as a way to first protect our personal data and personal information, it comes down to our practices, and it comes down to the nature of the technology. In the forefront, we have new concepts like digital wallets, like connecting your own personal assets without an intermediary or any sort of like third party like a bank. So in the forefront, you are in control and self-custody of your assets through really heavy encryption through blockchain technologies before going out and exploring with AI. This is important. I like to refer to this combination as Web3, as a third iteration of the internet, because that's on the forefront or the front end. But on the back end, the architecture is also new, and it's mesh architecture. It's nodes and servers that are distributed in nature all over the world rather than being accumulated on a server or a data center, which it's vulnerable to a single point of failure. So whether if it's Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or anybody that you're paying for that, in blockchain, this is mesh architecture, and the servers are distributed in nature. So it creates a more resilient network, a more secure. And when it comes to cybersecurity, perhaps in other investments where eyes are not there yet, this is definitely a new architecture that you should look into, especially because one of the biggest benefits of blockchain that is not taught is origin of intellectual property. So anything that you develop on blockchain, you can be the owner of this intellectual property. I'll give you an example, impactful example. Last century, we got a lot of companies buying intellectual property just to shut them down, kind of, because they were very disruptive technologies. And now, if you use blockchain on your model and business model, it is completely new architecture in the back end and completely new architecture in the front end, and it's completely origin of intellectual property. So this is kind of like a reset of a world, if you want to say so, in terms of intellectual property.
Other thoughts? Is just that intersection between the two?
Yeah. We have the family office is approximately $50 million art collection. Obviously, when the surplus of counterfeits and all of the cases came out, and there is an estimate that about 25% of everything that's in a museum and more for contemporary art is fake. And the art and the people who, obviously the buyers, are going to suffer. They see the news, you hear the launch, because the people who buy the artworks and they insure them for $17 million really don't want to know it's that kind of fake. Right? Like there was just an TV show, President Apes. Great episode. They switched candidacy. That is a team card. Artists are going to start putting their catalog resume, their catalog of artworks on the blockchain. It will eliminate a multi-billion-dollar counterfeit industry. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you say blockchain to an artist, you might as well be speaking like this ether from PayDOS. And so there is still an adoption and education gap where those artists need to be brought along into a technological framework and we're going to say, be a creator. But let's be cybersecurity and have your intellectual property protected. Your gallerist throws great parties, but he better know how to manage his infrastructure.
That's what we do as Beat Basel. We have on board thousands and thousands of artists Beat Basel, like Bitcoin Basel. That's our spin-off.
I was about to say, CJ, did you and Jorge talk? Because that is exactly a pitch for exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, Jared, I see you chime in.
To say that I think that the point of authentication is one of the biggest things that we got to deal with today. And with the AI is advancing so quickly, like my analyst actually took a call from a guy who had generated all of his materials. Everything was AI generated. And luckily, we use it often enough that he was able to spot what all of this stuff was. Like he was like, hey, isn't that gamma that you used to create that presentation? And this guy was pitching himself as if he was an investor. And so we were able to quickly identify just because we had the knowledge of it. But there will come a point where you need to have some actual authentication. It's not just, hiring some third-party service that's going to do, a few phone calls and try to verify to people. It's going to be a technology-based system.
What roles do you think are going to be potential mediator or else disappear? For first analysis?
That's a whole other panel.
Oh, God.
But lightning rounds, right? Sort of, and this is a good place. Any last sort of thoughts or comments? I'm going to try to leave time for at least one or two questions. But lightning round, 30 seconds or less. What's sort of the one thing you would want to leave a room full of investors and other allocators around AI and the blockchain?
Talking about a book here, but if you're not vetting specific niche and that they get out into your businesses, you might go find weaknesses.
So there's a saying that good artists copy, great artists steal. I'm actually doing that with some of Richard's tools. Right? So all the tools that he's created, I've started and creating my own types of things for the real estate side of things. And so just take other people's ideas. It's so easy right now to go ahead and do that and just utilize what's available to you to create your own little test systems and see what works for you.
Good.
First.
So I guess our second mission landing on the surface of the moon, we have 222 artists, our first mission last year, and everything is verified, certified on the blockchain. This is something that we do to lift up the arts and bring it into our harmony with the science and space exploration. This is our second mission. It's launching in November. I want to give a shout out to my co-founder, CEO Scott Spiegel is there as well. If you guys want to talk to us, we're going to be around. We're Beat Basel. And yeah, real world assets, besides the art and digital arts, real world assets, portfolios, get on it. It's
lightning.
That's it. Just real world assets.
So real quick, 2 ways you can invest in AI, right? You can pick up early stage startups, Series A, Series B, but that space is getting too it's difficult to identify the real gems. I'm taking a different approach. I'm trying to find companies which are now using AI to disrupt the industry. Check out a company called QXO. The CEO is Brad Jacobs. He's 8-time CEO, all 8 companies, multi-billion-dollar exit. This is probably his 9th company. He's a billionaire. He has put $1 billion of his own money in QXO. It's into building supply. So a lot of real estate guys can relate to it. And he's bringing in AI and technology to transform this whole space and create shareholder value.
Public or private?
Public, listed, QXO.
Francis, take us home.
I would recommend just use AI tools every day, 7 days a week in your business and in your personal life. Ask it questions, just anything, ask it for a recipe. The only way you're going to know what these tools can do, which are going to inform your business and the rest of your life too, is to use them.
Good. So we have time for one question, a quick one. We got a hand up first over here. Yeah, lightning round. Brevity is preferred over exposition. Please.
CJ, I was just interested when you brought what you had seen in Georgia back to the U.S. and tried to implement it. You said you ran straight into bureaucracy. I was just curious, what particular bureaucracy did you run into? How did it stop what you were trying to do?
There's 5 main title insurance companies that are embedded in every municipality, city, and also at the federal level. More important, you cannot get a mortgage unless you use those 5. It is an oligopoly. It is technically illegal. It's going to exist for a very long time.
Yeah, and I can talk to you about the actual county level as well. The recorded offices is another big chunk. So those groups are tied in at the county level.
Yeah, and all getting fees.
Yes.
All getting fees. Well, thank you to the panelists. I appreciate the audience for the pep, and please give these guys a round of applause as we head out.
Hello, Lord. Hey, great. This